the reason that we're on this, that I'm doing this call for selfless listening is that there are a lot of people who say, "Hey, Dave, I love what you're talking about, selfless listening." I thought it's so generic. And I say generic in the sense that, I wanted to share a little bit about the journey of selfless listening, how I stumbled across this, because, we call it stumble. I don't know. Life is a journey and we learn things as we go, and nothing's by accident. So we're not going to go, hey, I tripped and fell and this is what I landed in. But for years, I was a sales guy. And as a sales guy, what I really focused on doing was not necessarily focused on the sales, selling product as much as I was helping people find what they were looking for. And when I did that, my emphasis of everything that I was doing was relationship driven. And when I say relationship driven, just that is that I was building and enhancing relationships to encourage people to share with me what they were looking for, what they were trying to accomplish, whether it was at business or in their life, and what they had experienced as obstacles, things that got in the way of their success. And over the course of time, I was a pretty good sales guy. And not that I love being a sales guy because of, other things, people always saw me as a sales guy, that I could sell anything. And truthfully, I could sell anything, but I wasn't selling anything other than myself. And it wasn't products and it wasn't services. It was solutions. What you need, why you need it, what's getting in the way. And fast forward along the way, I became a consultant and I did some other things. And then I had this journey. And most of the people who are on this call right now are aware of my journey. But about 10 years ago, I got a phone call that said that my youngest child, actually, my younger son, because I only have two boys. But my youngest child was homeless, in jail, and dealing with a heroin addiction. And the journey is rather convoluted and involved, but it took about 2 or 3 years as a course of action and stuff like that. But as I navigated the chaos of that experience, one of the things that I started working on rebuilding my relationship with my son. And in rebuilding my relationship with my son, what I was doing was I was doing exactly what I did as the sales guy. I was building relationships. I was understanding where he was, what he was going through, what he was struggling with, what was getting in the way. And instead of trying to find ways to make him find recovery or make him change his life, instead what I was able to do is I was able to be a resource to him to help him discover what he was looking for. And while he ultimately had to make the choice for his recovery and to change his life, the way we navigated it together, he was able to trust me in this journey, and we grew closer together, whereas usually addiction drives people apart. So as I'm coaching parents and I'm working through this stuff, I'm going, hey, I'm back to where I was. In fact, now I'm, I don't know, older. Yeah, look at me. I'm older. I'm wiser. I'd like to say that at least. I'm more versed in the things that I'm passionate about. And so what we're doing right now is that we are really focusing on what is selfless listening in a world today where we are disconnected, in a world where people are not really communicating. We're text messaging and we're doing all these other things. And parents are struggling to be parents. So this selfless listening changes and enhances relationships at work. It changes and enhances relationship at home. And it just changes and enhances relationship in our everyday lives. And that's really what this weekly thing is going to be about, is talk about situations and areas where selfless listening can make a difference. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to spend about 15 or 20 minutes just kind of giving an overview to what selfless listening is, and hoping that at some point in time you will have questions, whether they're general questions or they're personal questions, and we can talk a little bit about selfless listening in your life and some of the things that you can do and the tools that resources that you can apply to shifting the dynamic and how you engage and connect with others. This is what I see, and we all see this every day, but we see people in meetings texting, we see people sitting right next to each other texting, or we see people in conversation struggling to be understood. And I think that that's the biggest thing is we're struggling to be understood because the other person doesn't know how to listen, doesn't know how to really respond to what we're saying. But at the same time, it goes back to us. We don't know necessarily who we can trust and who we can be authentic with, who we can be honest with in a way that we can actually talk to them about what's really going on. You know, how many of you have just find this thing is that the situation where I have to be safe. I don't know who I can trust. I don't know if I can be real. I don't know how to tell the truth. Or the other thing is that I should have the answers. You know, I've got an MBA, or I've been in this job for 20 years, or I've been parenting this kid for 15 years. I should know how to handle this. And so shame also gets in the way of our ability to communicate, but it becomes this point of frustration. And so what happens is that we're texting, we're speaking in 140 character sound bites. We're arguing on Facebook for all places where all we are is being right. We're not being understood. All we are is being opinionated and judgmental instead of understanding and learning. You know, Facebook could be this great community of learning, and instead it's this place where one person stands on the corner of their page and screams at the other person and calls them names and tells the world how stupid they are because I'm so right. And there's no healing in that. There's no learning in that. There's no engagement in that. And call this idyllic, but this is what it looks like when people are truly engaged. There's no phone. There's no computer. There's no TV set. There's no interruption. People are making eye contact. They're relaxed. They're listening. They're feeling safe. They're feeling trusted. This can happen. It has to happen. We're going to solve the challenges that we face in our personal lives or in our communities, or, you know, if you want to go global in the world today. It starts with us being able to communicate on a level where everybody's listening, everybody's learning, and everybody's feeling safe and protected in these conversations. So that's what selfless listening is about. Selfless listening is that place where we take the focus off of what we want, what we desire, what we expect. It's the perception of our opinions, and the beliefs and knowledge that we bring from our background. We set that aside to truly engage the person that we're talking to understand the world as they see it. And the whole in conversation is understanding the world as they see it, is giving them a place for them to share what they want, what they see, what they need, why they need it. And other things that I don't have on here, but I've mentioned before, is what gets in the way. What interrupts their ability to get there. So we have not only the things that we know and trust and believe is valid from our perspective, but now we have other things that we can know, trust, and believe from somebody else's. And even if there's a disconnect, if I don't agree, that's not what this is about. This isn't about coming to agreement. This is about coming to a place of understanding, where I understand why somebody sees something the way they do, or I understand how they feel about a particular situation. You know, I very clearly, have had an experience with my son where I came to learn that a big part of the frustration of the challenges in our relationships is that, and when I thought I was encouraging and coaching and prodding my son, helping him find ways to maybe improve or do things better or differently, what he heard wasn't encouragement or guidance. What he heard was criticism and ridicule. His translator said, "You can do better." My translator meant to say, "If you want to do better, here's some ideas." And so as a result, my son felt like his dad never thought he could be good enough. And the only reason I understand that today is because my son got to a place where I was listening and he felt safe to tell me. He says, "Dad, this is what I heard when I grew up." And that's, you hear that and it breaks your heart. But at the same time, it's better to know that at some point in time than to never know that. So if you're a manager or you're a coworker, and there are things that people say and it really disrupts you and hurts your energy, imagine if there was a place where you could have an honest, authentic conversation about what we hear, think, and experience when we're engaged in conversations with other people, or we have that same environment at home or with our spouses. So that's what this is all about. Selfless listening takes on 4 levels. And I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but simply is it begins with listening to learn. And listening to learn is, just that very first level thing. But what it does is it gives us an opportunity to be aware of the environment that we're in, or aware of some need, issue, challenge that our coworker, or our son or daughter, or our spouse or whatever is having. It creates awareness. It creates a level of awareness that there's something that I need to know. Then we go deeper into it. We go into learning to understand, and learning to understand allows us now to get into a space where, as they share, we can start to feel what they're feeling and see what they see, and we become a little bit more empathetic to why they see, think, and feel what they do. And then we shift into, with more conversation. It takes time, and this is to me, this is going from level 2 to level 3, from learning to understand to understanding to know. We go a lot deeper. This is where it really gets serious. But what happens then is we get context. And context is now we see the situation in terms of priority and how and need and desire. And it becomes one of those things where they start to really share the gritty stuff that we need to know in order to help them. And then the last piece is knowing to solve, where we get to a point where they've shared all they can share. And now what we can do is we can sit down and say, wow, that was really powerful. What do you need from me? How do you envision me supporting you or helping you in this situation? Now we're transitioning from an awareness of a problem to a place where we can actually work out a solution together. That's selfless listening in a nutshell. I'm going to pause right here to see. I have to put my little glasses on to see your little heads, but if you guys have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can text me questions. I think you see that in the screen right above you. Anybody have any questions about what I've shared so far? Or do you want me to keep going? I can keep going, obviously. So while I was talking, I noticed that 2 people joined in that I don't know. So thanks for joining in. And again, please, if you have any questions, this would be a good time to talk. All right, I will keep going. I've shared this a little bit, but one of the little life rules that I learned years ago was everybody's perspective is valid from where they stand. And when you hear that, think about that: valid. It's right. It's correct. Right. Everybody's perception is truth. And the reason that I say that is, thanks, Raisa. It's not that we think they're right, but we have to understand is what they see is valid for them. And it's kind of like, the blind spot is that if I'm facing you, if you guys were all in a room facing me, what you see behind me is what I can't see behind me. Just like what I see behind you is something you can't see behind you unless you turn around. It's the same thing from perspective. So you see things from where you sit that I can't see from where I sit. And so when you report this as valid, my experience, my life experiences, the journey that I'm on, or the things that are going on, they're valid. They're valid. They have to be valid because that's what I see. And I can't deny it to you just because I don't agree. It's your perspective. So it's valid. Just like some of the things that I share may be opinions, lessons, experiences that I've internalized, that things that they become guides for me on how I live my life. You can go, Dave, I can never do that, or Dave, I disagree. You have that right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It's valid from where you sit. So this is really that whole thing about is until you know what another person knows, sees, experiences, or feels, you will not be able to give them what they need. You can't, because you don't understand. And you'll not, and because you are stuck in this opinion of who you are, where you are, not willing to receive their experience, the experiences of their journey, they're not going to trust you. People only trust people that have listened, taken the time to listen and learn about them and who they are first. It's that simple. It's that basic. And I'm probably going to bring up, because I can't resist it, I'm going to bring up a real controversial topic. and I'm hoping that I don't lose anybody. So what I would really love you to do is just hang in there with me. Is and I say it's controversial because I really think this is an awesome example. So let's not focus on the issue. Let's focus on the example. The people who are taking a knee at the beginning, football players who are taking a knee at the beginning of football games. Wow. And the reason Colin Kaepernick took a knee, because he saw this as an opportunity to protest and call attention to the people who were minorities being affected by police, we'll call it violence. That's not the right word, but you get it. People were dying and being assaulted and arrested, and he just felt like it was a wrong that needed to be right. He felt like it was something that needed to be called out, and he chose the football field before the playing of the national anthem to wage his protest. So now that's what everybody goes, oh my gosh, he doesn't have that right. Yes, he does have that right. It's not against the law. It's not against the rules. We have a First Amendment thing. And I'm not going to stand up and say, hey, great idea, because it kind of rubbed me in a variety of different ways. But let's just focus. From Colin Kaepernick's perspective, it was valid from where he stood, or in this case, kneeled. Now, the controversy that ensues is people got into an argument is that he's, this is from my perspective, he is disrespecting the troops. He is disrespecting the flag. He's disrespecting the national anthem. Those two are valid because that's your perspective. But we have this whole shitstorm, if you will, argument about the fact that Colin Kaepernick is wrong, and he's not wrong. He has a right to share his perspective from where he stands. And the best thing that we can do is to engage in conversation with Colin Kaepernick to better understand why he's doing this, what he hopes to accomplish, and how he envisions solving the problem. But if we're hung up in the fact that my perception of what he's doing is wrong, now I'm arguing with him about what I think he's doing wrong and why I think he's wrong. And now I'm forcing him to listen to my perspective, which is also valid, but I'm not solving any problems because my answer is going to be, you need to stand for the national anthem. And so we're not solving the problem. So here it is, 2 years or a year, whatever it is after the thing, and we're still in this debate. Sadly, we're still in this debate. Wouldn't it be nice if somehow we had conversations about the intent, maybe shifting away from the action and focusing on what he was trying to do was accomplish a change in behavior? And that's all I'm going to go on. I don't want to get into a pity argument, but you get the point of view is that different perspectives create different reactions, and everybody needs to find a way to understand before we can communicate. And it requires understanding. So the foundation of effective relationship building, love the typo in there, sorry about that. But the foundation of effective relationship building is learning. We have to learn. And we have to learn, of course it's in small print, so I got to put my glasses down, but what if there was a bigger problem than you're aware of? We see a behavior, and we automatically make a judgment about that behavior that says, this is what I know and believe from what I know and believe. But what if there's more to it? What if there's something missing, a piece of information that we didn't have? What if they don't trust you enough to tell you what's really going on? So even if you ask them, they go, sorry, my bad. And they dismiss it. And so you think they're being very cavalier, but what they're really doing is not being cavalier or defensive. What they're doing is they're being protective of their truth because they don't know if they can be safe or honest. And what if your ideas actually make things worse because you don't have all the information? So you express an opinion that demonstrates greater unwillingness to understand or greater unawareness of the issue to the point where you inflame the pain that's already there. So it comes down to what you don't know is more important than what you do know. Even me sitting here right now and sharing this talk is, Dave Cooke, the expert on listening. Am I? No. I have a passion for it. Do I do it all the time? No. Could I be better at it? Yes. Do I have strong opinions? Yes. Does that make them right? No. Because as I'm going down the street, if I stop learning, then I become arrogant. I become convoluted. I become ignorant. I become lost. I become an expert. And an expert is somebody who needs to be an expert. You need to be in continuous learning mode. You're constantly researching. And the key is for all of this to work, somebody, whoever it is, has to trust you with what they need, why they need it, why it is important, and how important it is. And it's all about trust. And that's really hard. That's a hard place to be because we feel like we have to tell people what they need to do. We feel like we need to be in control of the situation. We feel like we should have the answers. And so what happens is that we make situations about us because we're presented in them instead of making the situation about them to bring them into it so we can understand it, and solve it. And so anyway, still don't see any questions. I'll keep rambling for a while. I'm hoping that we're going to have some questions. So here, the selfless listening is take the focus off of ourselves to engage in a learning process. And I've already covered that. I'm going to pause right here. I'm not going any further till I at least get one question. No, I don't require a question, but I don't want to lecture too much. I would love to have some conversation. So the big ahas in this is the opposite. Think about what the opposite is of listening. And for me, it's telling. And the opposite of selfless is selfish. So when you think about the two paradigms, there's selfish telling and there's selfless listening. And selfish is a harsh word, because we don't do it necessarily to be selfish, but we do engage in it out of self-preservation, self-protection, self-fulfillment. And so those things by definition are selfish because it's about me. And so when, the big thing that I discovered when I was dealing with my son and the journey that he was on, I was the master of telling him what I thought he needed to do, just like I said when he was growing up even. But I was the master of telling my son what he needed to do, the things that I believed that he could engage in to improve, to grow, to get better, to be more accessible, direction and guidance for his life, and all that other stuff. And essentially what I was doing, I was telling him what he needed to do. I was being selfish. It was about me. And, I feel really bad about that, but at the same time, it's like that's what it was. It was about me. And so when my son was in the middle of his throes of his addiction, I was definitely being selfish because I wanted to make sure that he realized the outcomes I desired, expected, needed, without understanding where he was and what was getting in the way. Yeah, great question. I got two questions here, and one question it was Raisa clearing it up, and thank you, Raisa, for that. Here, let me share this with you. When trying to find out what someone needs, you don't feel like they are being truthful. Yeah, no kidding. When we go to somebody and say, hey, what's going on? What do you need? Or something like that, or how can I help? Or it's a boss or something like that, right? Are you talking about trusting the person asking or trusting the person who is answering? Or you want me to answer it both ways? Let's focus on the way I'm reading this literally. When you're trying to find out what someone needs, you don't feel like they are being truthful. Of course they're not being truthful. They don't know that they can yet. They don't know that they can trust you yet. So that's great. It's so true. So think about this is that, the couple things is that trust, safety, protection, those are the things. So if we don't feel safe or protected or trust, feel that environment that we can trust somebody, what are we going to do? We're going to defend ourselves. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to be this wall of safety and protection around it. Why? Because we don't know what's going to happen if we tell somebody the truth. So we'll tell them some of the truth, or we'll make up a half-baked story just to kind of get it moving on. So, and I don't think I have this in further slides. So let's just talk about this for a second. Is what it looks like when you make a commitment. And I have it in a couple of different ebooks, but the model that I share with moms and dads with this thing is that people might not trust you out of the gate, and they might trust you over time, but they might you might have to demonstrate your commitment, make a commitment, and then demonstrate it. So the commitment that I've shared with parents is that, and of course this is in Dave E. So every mom and dad, they quote unquote script it or modify it to meet their thing. But what you say to a child is, hey, where you are and what you're going through right now, I know isn't where you want to be. And I also know that some of the things that I'd like to have you know more than anything else is how much I love you, how much I care for you. That you discovering the path that you're on, that you want to be on, to be the person that you desire to be, is more important to me than anything in the world. But one of the things that you don't understand is that comes from the love that I have for you, which my love for you is greater than anything in the world. And I'm going to do whatever I can to walk this out with you so that you can find what you're looking for. And it's probably going to take some time for you to trust me, but I just want to let you know that my commitment to you and my love for you is stronger than anything you'll experience. And at some point in time, you and I will be able to talk this out and walk through it. And you leave it at that. That's a powerful thing. So now from that point forward, though, is what you have to remind yourself. What you'd remind yourself is, hey, I can't criticize, judge, or condemn them. So when I say, hey, how's it going? And they say, hey, yeah, I had a rough day at school. You want to talk about it? No. Okay. And you leave it at that. You don't go, or you could go, hey, why? What happened? And they say, don't worry about it. Say, okay, thanks. But like I said, I'm here to learn, here to listen. If you ever want my help, whoever want to talk. And over time, when somebody finally tells you the truth, because they will eventually tell you the truth about something, you can't freak out. You got to live the commitment that said, I'm not going to judge, criticize, or condemn you. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to listen, learn, and understand to the point where if they ask for help, guidance, or direction, you're prepared to give it to them. Once they experience that interaction with truth, their truth to you, it'll change everything. But it's a process. Does that help? I came up with a script for the work environment, and I think it still sounds cheesy, but it's something along the line of, hey, my working relationship with you just has to work. And the only way it's going to work is if you and I can find a way for us to be honest, authentic, and trust each other. And so here's my deal: is when something goes on, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, and what's getting in the way of my joy or happiness in the process. And I'm hoping you will too, because for us to connect and collaborate and achieve what we want to achieve here, we're just gonna have to trust each other. And I don't know if it's going to be hard for you to get there or not, but I'm willing to go there if you are. I'm willing to go there regardless of whether you are. That's my commitment. And, who knows? I mean, I remember, I have one story is I remember years ago, I have a thing in my head, I call it the rules of engagement, but I was a newbie in a new industry. It was the furniture industry. I was a business development person. And I had to interface with designers who actually laid out floor plans and specifications for product and all that other stuff. So I would go and I'd get a business opportunity. I'd come back with the information. I'd have to sit down with the designer who would help me prepare a quote. And I'd go to the designer all excited with this new business opportunity, and they'd give me the hand, say, I don't have time now, I'm busy. It's okay. When can I come back? Well, I'm going to be working on this day today, and I got a meeting tomorrow. Sometime after lunch. I said, well, sometime after lunch isn't on my calendar. Give me a time. And they said, okay, how about 2:00? Okay, so I'll see you at 2:00. Well, 2:00 comes and I'm at their desk. And they look at me and they go, I don't have time for you. I said, no, that's not how this works. You made a commitment to me. And you told me if I left you alone and came back today at 2:00, you'd be ready for me. go into listening mode, need to understand what their issue is with this process and their, my rules of engagement, if you will, et cetera. But if I just demand that of them and leave, then we can't solve the problem. But what I do is I put out and say, here's my expectations. Here's my commitment. Here's how it's going to work. And now I listen. And they will tell me the truth about what's getting in the way. And I will listen, I will understand, and we'll get to a point where it's like, okay, good. How are we going to work this out? I don't know, because I just don't see myself doing this. I got it. I know you don't see yourselves doing it, but when you start to put it into practice, I'll help you. And we worked it out for 4 years. Man, I had a great relationship with designers. I never missed a deadline, and I never interrupted their workflow. And to the point where they were willing to collaborate with me over their willingness to collaborate with other salespeople, because they learned that I respected the way they wanted to work. I respected their time and I respected their process. So that's what selfless listening is all about. It's that stuff. Taking the time to engage people in authentic kind of conversations that allow us to tell the truth. And from that place of truth, we learn, we understand. So there's listening to learn, which is awareness. What I have on here is basically just, high level problem. We begin to engage in a listening dialogue. Listening dialogue, key thing. It's all about the questions you ask. And salespeople say, yeah, but I need to tell them. No, you don't need to tell them anything. Ask great questions that demonstrate what you want them to learn from the way you ask questions. So you confirm what was said and you keep asking open-ended questions. And open-ended questions are the key. In fact, I gave you an example earlier. It wasn't open-ended. But basically, open-ended questions are what, where, why, when, and how. Instead of have, do, are, that kind of stuff. Because like when I said, my son comes home and says, I had a bad day. Do you want to talk about it? They go, no, that's really easy. Would you like to talk about it? No, that's real easy. Say, oh, that's too bad. Why don't we sit down and talk about it? Think about what that does. They go, no, Mom, I really don't want to talk about it. But I can't say no. Why don't we just sit down and talk about it? It's like, no, it's like, no, I really don't want to. Okay. Any reason why? Well, it's nothing. What makes you think it's nothing? Oh, crap. Now we're in a conversation. We're engaging in open, selfless listening mode. Because we forced them to say, I use the word force, encouraged them to say other things than yes and no. And we start to create an environment, facilitate that environment where the potential for an exchange of information occurs. And learning to understand is just that. We go deeper into the issue. We identify what their struggles and their desires. And if necessary, we can even say, I've been down that road. The other day, I had the same experience. I feel you. And you go back to asking another question. Here's the magic bullet. This is like DEFCON 3 when it comes to selfless listening. Because most people, when they identify what the problem is and they get some sense of the pain, the hurt, the struggle inside of the problem, we go to solution mode. Salespeople are the masters of this. In fact, they suck at selling because they don't get to this level. They have answers before they have the information. But understanding to know is getting deeper into the truth. These are the secrets that people don't want to share. And so it starts to focus on priority and criticality, past experience. This is where they really get into the stuff that's causing them the frustration. I've been here before. I'm doing this again. I can't believe I'm here. And then you start to identify the importance of dealing with this. This gets into the level of their frustration. And this is where you start to really allow them to, this is where you're the best at listening. Because they're going to shut down the minute you try to give answers. But they're also going to shut down the minute they think you're not listening to them, or they think that they can't be safe with the truth. You can't be safe with the truth. I had a bike ride conversation yesterday, and I was riding with this person, and they were talking about a lot of stuff at a very high level, and it was very personal. I don't want to go into a lot of detail just because, but there was a point in the ride while we're riding. So this wasn't a private conversation, but we're in a point where we're riding, and I just said, "Tell me a little bit about growing up." And the next thing out of their mouth told me everything about where they were in the conversation. They said, I'll tell you what, you want the gritty details? I'll give you the gritty details. What they were doing is they were getting ready to tell me something that they, even though we were in a public forum, that they really don't freely share with a lot of people. And then when they say something like that, that means that the standard of care on my level of listening has to go up. Because now they're trusting me with stuff they don't trust with just anybody. And that's the difference between a casual friend and a good friend. You have casual friends, people you hang around with and have fun with and share the high level BS conversations about how was your weekend, how's your day, that kind of stuff. But a good friend says, yeah, I got to tell you, I had the worst experience of my life the other day. Really, what happened? Oh my God, what happened? That means they trust you with their truth. And that's what this is all about. And then the last piece is knowing to solve. You get to a point in the conversation where they're all shared out and you sense that you kind of know all that you need to or are going to get from that conversation. And they may look and say, that's all I got. What do you think? And the response in that situation is entirely different. Again, well, man, here's what I think. This, based on this, and this, here's the answer. It's more like, I don't know. I'm still digesting all this stuff. Where would you like to see this go? How do you envision this going from here? How do you envision yourself taking care of this? And what you're doing is you're helping them problem solve, but they know that you're going to be there with them as you problem solve it. And so now what you're able to do is you're able to make a commitment to help them navigate this thing, whatever it is, big or small, that they're dealing with. And you've not, in one course of part of this conversation, you haven't judged them, you haven't criticized them, you haven't condemned them, you haven't interrupted them, you haven't expressed your opinion. All you've done is just sat there and created this environment to let them know that you know what they know. And now you guys are willing to walk this out together. That's selfless listening. And it can be done anywhere. I don't care what anybody says about work, school, community. It can be done anywhere. The thing is, you need to become comfortable, who am I in this and what's my commitment to connecting and collaborating with these people on a level that solves problems, changes lives, influences different outcomes. So here's a summary: is listening to learn is awareness, learning to understand is empathy, understanding to know is context, knowing to solve is engagement. What you've accomplished is you've built trust. You've demonstrated your knowledge and experience by the way you ask questions, the way you stay engaged in their story. You've obtained a comprehensive perspective about the situation, more than just what you know, think, and believe. And now, if they need your help, you've created an environment where you can actually advocate for them with others, with their solution in their lives, whatever. But you're there now. You're on the team. And you're in a position to support them to the outcome they desire. And you've demonstrated in your investment and your commitment to that. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Okay. I'm going to stop because this is my summary. When you authentically make the person you're meeting with the most important person in the conversation, no phone. I try to hold up my phone, but it's plugged in. No phone. Where is it? Camera. There it is. No phone. No phone. When I go to meetings with people, my phone is upside down, face down. I'm in a meeting. I am off the grid for an hour or more. The worst thing I can do is pick up the phone, text messages, check my calendar. That's crap. That's not fair to the person that you're engaging. You make this conversation all about them. You completely shift the conversation to build trust, which is the only way you're going to gather authentic, comprehensive information that's going to solve problems, bring solutions to challenging situations. And I have a question. What if they aren't on the grid? It's okay. You can't make them. Great question, though, Ray. It's a great question. You can ask them, or you can tell them, say, you can demonstrate your commitment out of the gate. So just so you know, I'm yours. and you flip the phone upside down. I'm not going to let anything distract us. Again, model the commitment, model the behavior. They can choose to model it and honor that behavior, or they can choose to do what works for them. Or you can go to rules engagement and say to them, for this to work, it'd really be nice if you could turn your phone off too. But that's getting into selfish telling. So model the behavior that you're committing to, and hopefully they'll model it back. Any other questions? 11:44. We can either get off now or we can keep talking. I mean, I can give you some stories, but or examples, but I would love to know what your questions are. I got one here. Can I bring you up on stage, Jody, or you want to talk quietly? Okay. Do you have yeah, I tried it. It didn't work. Don't worry about it. So let's do this. Why don't you ask your question? Because I want to make sure we get it. Yeah, I tried to put you up on the screen. It didn't work. So I think your connection is having trouble. So what's your question? All right, I'm not getting the question yet. Does anybody else have any questions? While we're waiting, because I know Jody has a question. I just haven't had a chance to hear from her yet. All right. So let me put a bow on this bad boy then, as I'm waiting for more questions. So what we're going to do going forward is that my goal is to have a weekly session like this. We can go one of two ways, and you can share this with your friends and family members, however you want to go with it. But I would like to pick a topical area, whether it's maybe going through each one of these things, listening to learn what it looks like, how it works, give some stories and examples. But what I'd rather do is I'd have this make it more topical to my participants and pick a subject matter in selfless listening that works. So selfless listening at the office, communicating with a coworker, selfless listening at the office and how to communicate with a bad boss, or selfless listening in the home, how to build better connections and relationships with my kids or my spouse, but or maybe another family member, mom, dad, brother, sister. What I would encourage you to do is, as you've digested this thing, if you want, I can send you this talking deck. All you have to do is email me at dave@100petals.com or dave@thecookgroupllc.com. And remember, Cook has an E on the end of it. And I'll be happy to send you this talking deck so you have it. What I would encourage you to do is send me questions. Say, hey, I've been digesting this thing, thinking about it. Here's a situation that I have in my life, and I would love to have you spend some time specifically talking to this challenge. And we will make this the topical, maybe a topical segment the next week. And I will tee it up, and I will have some examples, and I will have some guidance and stuff like that, because I look at selfless listening as a game changer. It completely changes the way people interface with you. In fact, they don't know how to handle it at first when it usually comes up. Just like Gracie, you asked, what do you do if you say to somebody, hey, just letting you know I'm all yours, and you hand the phone face down? It puts them in a weird spot. And you're not doing that intentionally, but it's like, really? Yeah, man, my time with you is that important. I'm not going to get distracted. And now it makes them think about their time with you. Are they willing to be distracted? Now, they may defend it in their minds, and they may have justifications why they need to do it. And, that's their business, because we're not here to judge, criticize, or condemn. But what it does is it sets the table for a potentially different engagement. Imagine if they say, I like that. Me too. Now for the next whatever amount of time, you guys are engaged. It's it. It's done. And if they don't, it's okay, because you're still living that commitment. And they get to see and experience what that looks like when you do it. And they go, boy, I wish I could do that. Well, nothing stops you from doing it. Next time, give it a try. And there's no pressure. There's no judgment. There's no shame. There's nothing. It's just like, yeah, hey, next time, let's do it. The other thing is that commitment to your child or your coworker is like, look, I can only be who I am. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not living in fear. I'm not living in, this thing that says there's something wrong with me, something wrong with you. It's like, no, I got to be me. I just got to be me. So if I'm struggling with the way things are going between you and I'm going to share with you, not because I'm pissed, not because there's something, I think there's something wrong with you. It's just that, you know what, if this isn't working, or I think we can do this differently or better, I'm going to let you know kind of what's getting in my way, if that's okay. And, that is telling, but what it does is if you lay it on them and then you listen to their response, you flip it right then there. Listen to their response. The key word is listen to their response. Now you have an opportunity in selfless listening to engage in a dialogue where they're sharing. And then you get to the end where you say, here's the gaps. Based on what I heard, here's the gaps. Here's the disconnect. And now, how do we solve for that based on what we know about each other? How do we fix this? How does this work going forward? Imagine if we started doing that in these little nuggets here and there with people. Imagine the impact that we can have on the people we work with, the people we play with, the people we live with. It's huge. It's a game changer. Selfless listening changes everything. And that's why I have that saying in one of my, as a summary of one of my talks. Once I started listening, once I stopped telling and started listening, everything changed. And everything changed in two huge ways. Number one, it just changed my life. Because I realized all the places I was trying to be, instead of just, be for somebody else or act or behave by certain sets of expectations. I was like, no, wait a minute. I'm going to live in this space as I am and see what I learned from that. And then number two, it changed my relationships. Changed my relationship with myself. Changed my relationship with my son, who I've been battling with for an addiction for years. Changed my relationship with my other children. And it is changing the relationship with my wife, which probably, in all honesty, is probably one of the things that's more broken of all the other things that I've been working on. But that's what this is all about. And now I find myself in spaces where it doesn't always go right, and I don't always live in complete authenticity because the head trash sometimes wins. But allowing myself to, to find ways to encourage, to first trust that I'm safe, but then encourage others to be safe with me, we start to connect on levels that are really powerful. So, Dave at 100pedals.com, Dave at the Cooke Group LLC.com. And my goal is to continue to do this on a weekly basis. If this time works, I might keep this time. I might move it back 2 hours, just so we get into the after lunch routine instead of maybe, or towards the end of the day for people on the East Coast. But next week, come here again. But provide me some questions, topics, subjects that you'd love to cover under this umbrella of selfless listening. And I'd love to build this community, because I'm here about building communities that listen, because it's going to change the world. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.